So in this video, I'm going to show you how to scrape data if you don't have access to an API. So you can import Beautiful Soup from the BS4 library. Please do not use this video to create denial of service attacks. Now we're going to get into some advanced techniques. Okay, what's up everyone? My name is RJ, the computer doctor, and I'm back with another video. Okay, so the reason why I'm making this video is that a student that I'm currently mentoring didn't know how to scrape data from a website. I feel like this is a really great skill, especially if you're someone trying to get into AI engineering. We've had a lot of people coming to us with websites that they want us to put a chatbot in front of, basically. And a lot of the times they don't have an API or documentation set up on how we can access their data. This video is to help those who are in the same position and you just want to scrape data from a website. And this is also commonly used in research. In research, typically people want to know what people are thinking about. So people are on Reddit, there's data on Twitter, data everywhere. Researchers want to find out what kinds of conversations happen. They want to see what kinds of libraries people are using. So you can build a scraper that basically goes through these websites, collects information from those reviews, from users, and they can use it to build those computational models for their business use cases. This is also useful for marketing. So if you're someone who is thinking about building a new product, the first thing that you want to do is to do like market research. So you want to find out how are other people marketing their products that are very similar to what you are trying to sell, or you want to collect information on how people are feeling about a certain product. So you can use something like a web scraper to collect all of that information from those websites, and then you can conduct your own analysis on it. So with that out of the way, let's get into the video. Okay, so the traditional approach is to use something called Beautiful Soup and the request API if you're using Python. This is the Beautiful Soup documentation. It's basically a library that parses HTML documents. When you're using a request library in Python, you are requesting information from a website. If I were to request this website using Python, it would give me back this huge hierarchical list of HTML elements. So what Beautiful Soup does, it's basically a library that you can use to easily grab information from that hierarchical HTML document that you just retrieved. Okay. So this is how you can use it in your code. So you can import Beautiful Soup from the BS4 library. You do pip install BS4. It's not Beautiful Soup. And then you would insert your HTML document that you just retrieved using the request library. And then you would just give it a name. So in this case, they gave it soup. And you can print it using soup.prettify. If I scroll down here, you can grab information from that HTML document much easier. So you can do soup.title, and it will just grab the title tag, title.name, title.string, title.parent.name, soup.p. This will grab the p tags, all of the p tags on the website. You can find all of the a tags and so on. So if I were to go to this website, I think this is publicly available. This is a website about Moby Dick. Say that I have some code to request information from this website, and then I get this HTML document here. I want to build something that can answer questions about this web page. I want to build a chatbot that can answer all of my questions about Moby Dick. So how would you do that? The first thing that you do is you use the request library. You'd request this web page using code, and you get back this HTML document. Then I would inspect that HTML document to try and find a pattern on how the data is laid out. I can also click on this tool here that allows me to see like what section this is. So if I want to see this section, this is the class extracts. So say that I wanted to grab the div of class extracts, I can do that using Beautiful Soup. And I see that the tags here are aligned in accordance of some kind of H2 element, H3 element, and then some p tags. And I see some H2 element and then some p tags. or H3 and some p tags. This kind of carries on through the different chapters. There's a H2 tag and then some p tags, H2, some p tags. This gives me an idea of how I would parse this information using the Beautiful Soup library. What I would do is that I would grab all the H2 tags and the p tags, and then for every H2 tag that I see, I would fill in all the p tags that goes with it. So that's the section name, and then this is all the text that's available. So this would be the H2 tag, and then give me all the text for this H2 tag. This is all the text for it, and then so on. Okay, I hope that makes sense for you guys. And then continuing on, if I were to build a chatbot on this, I would chunk this data, chunk it by every paragraph, say. So this paragraph, I would chunk it, and then I would chunk it from this paragraph. And then I would store each of these paragraphs, I would turn it into a numerical representation. That's basically saying I'm assigning this a value of 57. I'm assigning this a value of 102. This a value of 500. And those numbers are according to what they mean. Okay, if I had a question on who is Moby Dick in this book, what you would do to build a chatbot is that you would take my query, my question, who is Moby Dick, you would turn it into a numerical representation. So say the number 32, you would go ahead and from these chunks of text, since the numbers that you labeled are according to what their meanings, you would find the pieces of text closest to the number 32 because it's so similar. You would give that to the user, and using a large language model, try to answer the user's question about it. This is called retrieval augmented generation. I talk about this a lot in my channel, and this is a powerful technique that you can use. It's used in many different applications. Retrieval augmented generation, user has a prompt, and then there's some kind of data retrieval that grabs data from a source, which is the data that you chunked up and turned into numerical representations. And then you'd give it to a large language model to produce your answer. I hope that answers any questions that you might have in your mind. If not, let me know in the comments down below and I'll try to get to them as best as I can. This is a relatively easy case when you have a clean document like this, where everything's laid out in a pattern. But you get something like this, which is a little bit more complicated. So I created a whole video about this last week on a tool that I'm building for the state capitol. Basically, I had to build something that could automatically scrape information from this website. I needed to scrape things like the PDF documents that are laid out here, and I needed to scrape them in a way that I knew what they're related to. For example, these are all the bill versions. I needed to know in my code, these are all testimonies, and this is the timeline that I showed in that tool last week. So the first problem with this website is that it's under Cloudflare bot protection. So that means if I were to request information from this website using the Python request library, I'm gonna run into issues because they set up precautions where people can't access their website because there's something called denial of service attacks, and with great power comes great responsibility. Please do not use this video to create denial of service attacks. When you are building a scraper, you're contacting that server and then you're telling that server to give me information, give me this HTML document or give me these files. If you're building a scraper that scrapes 1,000 times per second, that server is going to be attending to you specifically. So other people who are also trying to request that information are gonna have a difficult time grabbing that information because you are requesting that from that server 1,000 times per second. That's why some websites, the government website, have these precautions so people who might be attacking the website, they can immediately drop them off. So the way around that is you use something called Selenium. Selenium is a Python library. You can also use it in Java, C, Ruby, and so on. You can create a fake user or a fake browser. Using their API, you can actually create interactions that looks like a real user is interacting with the website. Okay, so this is an example of what that code looks like on how to use Selenium. You would initialize the WebDriver using the import from the Selenium package. Normally put a website that you want to get access to. You can grab the title, and then you can do these implicitly wait or just a timed out sleep. This is to show that you're not just clicking on a bunch of buttons very quickly. Using these sleeps make it look like you're an actual user. And then what they're doing here in this example is that they're grabbing a text box element. So they can grab it by the value, and then that element probably has the name my text in it, and then they're grabbing the submit button. They're sending keys here. They're sending Selenium those characters, and then they're clicking on the submit button. So just to show you an example of what that looks like, they're basically grabbing this element here. If I go back to my dev tools, I open up this, I use this tool, and I see what is the name of this input. I could grab the input name ID site search, and then I can type in computer science, and then since I have that go button, I can do a fake click on it. And then you would normally grab all the information that you need. You can grab all those 8 tags and grab even more information, and then you could change the URL back to same text box here. Say you had a list of strings that you want to search for, you could just run through that array, add some implicitly waits or some sleeps and make it look like you're a real user. And that's how you would bypass some of the Cloudflare bot protection tools that people have. I'm not sure if people also use this kind of method for building bots, like waiting in line for tickets or drops for shoes or things like that. You can definitely use it for that. I'm not too clear on how they navigate the website. You could probably use large language models to figure out the most likely names of the elements here to find the text box or the checkout button or things like that. But yeah, so that's basically how to get past that Cloudflare protection. Now we're gonna get into some advanced technique. So if I go to this website, sometimes when you're scraping a website, you will notice that the parameters in the URL, it has some kind of pattern that you can take advantage of. So in this case, I saw that this is probably really small on your screen, but if I don't know how to make that bigger. Okay, I'm just gonna paste it in this URL or the search box here. So I found in this URL that the build number is this second to last number here. So if I wanted to build like a dynamic search tool that whenever someone wanted information from this page, I know I could just augment this number, and then I could grab whatever year I wanted to grab the information from. Instead of a user going through the Selenium tool and searching up bill 727 here, this is this bill, I can just go to this URL and change that to 727, and it'll do the same thing. It'll give me to 727. If there's other bills that I want to search for, like previous years, I can just change that URL. Okay, so you can see how you can use this within your own code. I hope that maybe stirs up some ideas on how you can use it. Another advanced way of scraping websites is if I were to look at this website here and I wanted to grab, I know I wanted to grab these PDF documents that are listed in this section here, I would go ahead and search for what the ID of that tag is. I know that the tag I'm looking for, it has the ID name of main content, repeater versions, underscore versions link underscore 0. More likely than not, if I go to the next element here, it'll have a very similar name. It's going to have that name and 1, and more than likely it's going to have 2, 3, and 4. So you can use something called regular expressions. So if I go to just really quick regular expressions, this is what regular expression code looks like. I personally don't know how to write regular expressions, but with the beauty of using large language models, some of these things are basically handheld for you. You just go to a large language model and say, can you write me code to find text that looks similar to the text I provide you? It would give you a regular expression that kind of looks like this, start of the line. It has 3 to 15 characters long, certain numbers, letters, hyphens, the symbols that the regular expression is looking for. And then you can look for certain numbers or keywords in certain positions of that string you're searching for. Okay, let's see. Yeah, so what I'm basically showing you guys how to do is creating an API for this website. The best case scenario is if you are working with someone who has data and they have an internal API set up. So they have something in place where they have documentation, a URL where you can request information from their website, and then you wouldn't have to go through this whole process here. So something like the first thing that you would do instead of scraping the website is to search up Reddit API. If you wanted to grab information from Reddit, you can just use their API because they have increased limits of how you can access their repository. Since there's an API available, that means this is legal. Sometimes when you're building bots like that, you are avoiding some of the laws around the data. Since this API is available, you can use it as long as you're adhering within the limit. They have 100 queries per minute if you're using OAuth client ID, and then you can do rate limits for chat messages. You can automate the chat messages using this tool. Okay, so that's it for this video. That was web scraping using Beautiful Soup, or you could use methods like Selenium. If this video helped you guys, let me know in the comments down below. What are you trying to scrape data from? And if you have any requests for certain topics, let me know in the comments down below. I'd like to know as well. So there was someone in particular who had a question on C++ and embedded systems. And although I'm not a total expert in that area, I can try my best to relay the information that I have learned throughout my PhD career, and I'll make a video about it. Since this channel is just starting out, there's a high probability if you ask me to make a video, then I'll make a video about it. You can even ask me week after week. I'll definitely make a video for the people who comment on this channel. Yeah, and if you are just someone who just enjoys this video, please subscribe to this channel. It helps me out a lot. I'll see you guys next week.